Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started. The world woke up to news of a blast and images of plumes of smoke. The location was Crimea, a Ukrainian peninsula occupied by Russia since 2014. This is being seen as an offensive by Kiev. Ukraine says 9 Russian warplanes were destroyed in the explosions. Russia denies this. It says ammunition caught fire. Ukrainian officials are mocking Russia's version that a careless smoker might have caused the fire. But Ukraine has just stopped short of claiming responsibility. If it is indeed behind the blasts, it is a major escalation. The first major attack on a Russian military site in Crimea. So what is the end game here? Where is Ukraine's confidence stemming from? Is it relying on Europe, which faces a tough choice, Ukraine's independence or Russia's gas? Energy supplies to 3 European countries have been disrupted. Another reminder of what Europe may have to suffer this winter. On Gravitas tonight, as we bring you the latest on the war, we'll try to make sense of the moves that each side is making. The best defense is a good offense. Military commanders swear by this rule. Hit your enemy so hard they get knocked out. Even Ukraine is trying it out. For 5 months they were on the back foot. They were focused on repelling Russian attacks. This week that seems to have changed. Ukraine seems to have carried out a major attack on a military base in Crimea. Now why do I say seems to have? Because there's no clarity. On paper, Kiev has not taken responsibility for the attack, but multiple reports suggest otherwise. They claim Ukraine's special forces carried out this strike. What about Russia? What do they have to say? Russia's defense ministry claims it was not a strike. It was the result of aviation munitions detonating. If so, what caused them to detonate? That Russia won't say. Pretty soon, pictures popped up on social media like this one. It shows a large plume of smoke rising over the military base. Take a look at this. At least 1 person died in the incident. Several others were injured. Ukraine claims 9 Russian jets, 9 Russian warplanes were destroyed in the blast. Now that's a big loss, losing 9 jets in a single incident. Crimea's governor says there will be an investigation. For now, they've secured a 5-kilometer radius around the site. If Ukraine did carry out this attack, it would be a major escalation. And I underline the word major. Let me pull up the map for you. Look at the site of the explosion, Novofedorivka. It is located in Crimea's western coast. The military base is surrounded by Russian-held territory. Notice how far the front line is, which means this was a long-range strike. Ukrainian forces hit deep inside the Russian line. And that's a daring move, a clear-cut escalation in the ongoing war. Perhaps that's why Ukraine did not openly claim the attack. No responsibility, no reprisal. Having said that, Russia will react firmly to this incident. Crimea is very important land for them, both politically and historically. In 2014, it was annexed by Russia. Until then, it was part of Ukrainian sovereign territory. Even today, the international community does not recognize Russia's claim. They consider Crimea to be part of Ukraine. Well, that never stopped Putin, though. He has turned Crimea into a top tourist destination, also an important port on the Black Sea. What does Ukraine's president think about Crimea? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Immediately after the invasion, Zelensky was open to talks. Listen to his statement from the month of March. This is what he said. Volodymyr Zelensky. I think that items regarding temporarily occupied territories and pseudo-republics, we can discuss and find a compromise on how these territories will live on. So Zelensky was open to talks, possibly even a compromise. Compare that to his statement on Tuesday. This Zelensky is intent on retaking Crimea.
The Russian war against Ukraine and against all of free Europe began with Crimea and must end with Crimea, its liberation. Today it is impossible to say when this will happen, but we are constantly adding the necessary components to the formula for the liberation of Crimea.
Where is his confidence coming from? Is Zelensky counting on European support? And if he is, it's a very risky bet. Putin has successfully weaponized energy exports to Europe. The crisis is getting worse every day. On Tuesday, there was more bad news. Russia halted oil supplies to 3 European countries, Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic. All 3 used to get Russian oil from the Druzhba pipeline. Almost 250,000 barrels per day. This week, Russia shut down the southern part of this pipeline. Why? Because of payment issues. Reports say the oil shipments could resume shortly, but even so, it was a sneak peek of what could be in store. A long and painful winter. Europe's gas storages are only 67% full, simply not enough to tide over the winter. What about other energy sources? Hydropower is not an option thanks to heat waves. French nuclear reactors are hampered by corrosion issues, and green energy is taking way too long. All indications are that Putin is winning the energy war. In fact, a recent report spells out 3 reasons why. Number 1, Russia's oil output is back to pre-war levels. They were pumping 11 million barrels per day in January. That fell to 9 million barrels in June. But this month, it climbed back to 10.8 million barrels. In other words, Russia has found new buyers for its oil. Reason number 2, Russia is reducing oil discounts. Initially, they were selling at $35 less to attract buyers. Now that discount has been cut to $20. Reason number 3, the support from OPEC, the oil cartel. Joe Biden tried everything to influence the oil cartel, even traveled down to Saudi Arabia, but OPEC continues to support Vladimir Putin. As for Europe, their troubles are just beginning. Britain's energy bill could rise by 75% this winter. Almost 1/3 of all households could be pushed into poverty. Same in Germany. Their energy bills could rise up to 100%. So come winter, Europe has 2 choices, either freeze for Ukraine or pull back the sanctions regime. The United States is already doing it. Ukraine's chief economic advisor claims that Russian oil is still being used in the US. Now, to give you some context, the US banned all Russian oil imports back in the month of March. Then how exactly is it entering American markets? Through misrepresentation. Let me explain how this works. First, the Russian crude is taken to foreign refineries. It is refined to produce fuel, like petrol or diesel. And this fuel is then exported to the US. Why would any refinery do that? Because Russian oil is available at cheaper rates. So all they have to do is mislabel it. Say it's from Saudi Arabia or the UAE. At this point, these are unconfirmed claims from Ukraine, but they reveal which way the energy war is going. Putin is betting on the European public turning against the sanctions. If the winter is bad, that may well happen. So Ukraine's adventurism in Crimea could be a sign of 2 things. Either Zelensky's confidence in Europe's support or his lack of it. Perhaps a final gambit to push Russia towards talks. Let's shift our attention to China. Is China an unstable state? Is the Communist Party losing its grip? Are Chinese citizens angry with their government? Why am I asking these questions today? Because China is resorting to some extreme measures. Chinese officials have been forced to hire thugs. These goons are helping the Communist Party control the people. Let me show you some pictures. You may have seen them before on the show. They are from last month. These are Chinese citizens. They have been defrauded. Hundreds of them lost their bank deposits. So they launched a massive protest. In these images, it may look like the protesters are fighting each other, but they're not. Look closely. You'll see a group of men in plain clothes pushing the protesters around, pulling them by their clothes and beating them up. These men are thugs, reportedly hired by Chinese officials. We have more videos. Take a look at this one. There were cops in uniform at this protest, but they stood by and watched as goons went after the protesters. Reports say local Communist Party officials hired these thugs, and this was not their first gig. They've been used in the past for forced evictions and the demolition of homes. China has the biggest internal security apparatus in the world. A lot of you may not know this, but Beijing spends more on internal security than on defense. And yet they feel the need to hire thugs. Why does the government deploy non-state actors to reinforce power? Does the Communist Party feel threatened? Experts say we could see a more unstable China in the near future, and they give two reasons for that. Number one, the out-of-control health situation. China has failed to control the Wuhan virus. Zero COVID has had zero success. Reason number two, the economic situation. People have lost money. The property sector is ailing. Bad debts in banks are growing. China is failing on both fronts, health and economy, and people are angry. Let's talk about zero COVID in detail. As we speak, 80,000 people remain trapped in Sanya. This is a beach city in China. Now, Sanya is known as China's Hawaii. These people went there for a holiday. They're now trapped in a nightmare. And that's because of the Wuhan virus. Chinese authorities have detected more than 1,000 cases, so they've slapped zero COVID rules. All 80,000 tourists are under lockdown, and every one of them must be tested. The result is this. And this is not an isolated case. Millions of people are locked down in China. There are 5 new hotspots: Tibet, Hainan, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia and Guangdong, all suffering from zero COVID, a policy that has brought China's economy to a grinding halt, a policy the Chinese citizens are fighting back. In the month of April, a major protest broke out in Shanghai. The city was going through its worst Wuhan virus outbreak. More than 25 million people were put under a lockdown. Some of them lost their patience and took to the streets. Zero COVID triggered public anger. China's floundering economy is making things worse. The mortgage boycott is getting bigger. We've told you about this earlier. Thousands of Chinese citizens have stopped paying their EMIs. They haven't got the homes they bought. The developers did not complete the construction, so the buyers are not paying the mortgages. The boycott began with a few towns. It has now spread to nearly 100 cities. How many projects are facing a boycott? More than 320. China's economic woes have sparked social unrest, and it's getting worse. Unemployment is growing at an alarming rate. Young Chinese citizens cannot find jobs. I have some data. 1 out of 5 Chinese citizens is unemployed. This is in the 16 to 24 age group. China is already in recession. The GDP is shrinking. Beijing has officially reported a contraction of 2.6%. So people have in fact, a lot to be upset about. Draconian lockdowns, lack of jobs, failing banks, cheating by property developers, and a vicious crackdown by the Chinese state. The protests are getting bigger, and the Chinese state machinery is unable to crush them, which explains the need to hire thugs. But as they say, when it rains, it pours. China has a new virus to deal with. Not making this up. A new virus in China that has jumped from animals to humans. It is called the Langya virus. It was detected in eastern China. So far, 35 people have tested positive. The symptoms are quite similar to the Wuhan virus: fever, cough, fatigue, nausea, headaches, and vomiting. Authorities say there is no human-to-human transmission yet. Chinese authorities, so take it with a pinch of salt. Researchers say the Langya virus is usually found in shrews. Experts say there's no need to panic yet, but with the Communist Party in charge, you can take nothing for granted. Our sympathies with the people of China and with the people of Taiwan too. They're under fire from China. Officially, Beijing has called off the drills, but it's not done with Taiwan. China has devised a game plan, a strategy to take Taiwan, and this is no state secret confined to a war room. China has made it public. It has released a white paper on Taiwan, and it says in no uncertain terms that Beijing won't rule out the use of force to take Taiwan. This is a very significant move because China has put the threat of a military operation in writing. And China does not release white papers very often. So far, it has published only 2 of them. The first white paper in China was released in 1993, the second one in 2000. So this is their 3rd white paper ever and the first in 22 years. What does it say? Well, I have a copy with me, and there's a lot of tough talk. Looks like it's been drafted by one of their wolf warriors. There are 4 sections in all. The first section is titled, Taiwan is part of China. This is an indisputable fact. That's the title. What follows is anything but facts. A lot of the same old spiel about Taiwan being a part of China. Let me quote from some of it. It says, we are one China and Taiwan is part of China. This is an indisputable fact supported by history and the law. Taiwan has never been a state. Its status as part of China is unalterable. Any attempt to distort these facts and dispute or deny the one China principle will end in failure. That's basically the premise of this white paper. It's a defense of the one China policy. It paints the democratically elected government of Taiwan as a villain. It also talks about China's end goal, the reunification of Taiwan with China. Beijing has made an offer to Taipei, one country, 2 systems. China says Taiwan can follow the Hong Kong model. Allow me to quote again. Once peaceful reunification is achieved under one country, 2 systems, it will lay new foundations for China to make further progress and achieve national rejuvenation. At the same time, it will create huge opportunities for social and economic development in Taiwan and bring tangible benefits to the people of Taiwan. So China is selling one country, 2 systems. It may find no takers because look at what happened to Hong Kong. It was promised autonomy, but it's been crushed by China's national security law. Pro-Beijing lawmakers have been installed and pro-democracy activists have been jailed. Taiwan saw this, as did the rest of the world. It is unlikely to accept the so-called peaceful reunification, and at some level, Beijing knows this too. It's basically taking the carrot and stick approach. The proposal of peaceful reunification was the carrot. The threat of a military operation is the stick. Here is what Beijing threatens to do in Taiwan, and I'm quoting, "We will not renounce the use of force, and we reserve the option of taking all necessary measures." There's a message for the US too, the United States. "We Chinese will decide our own affairs. The Taiwan question is an internal affair that involves China's core interests and the Chinese people's national sentiments, and no external interference will be tolerated." So that's basically the white paper for you. It came with a message from Beijing. It compared Taiwan's government to an ant.
Achieving the complete reunification of the motherland is the joint aspiration of all Chinese people and an inevitable historical event. No matter whether the DPP authorities and Taiwan independence forces play the US card or any other card, they cannot save Taiwan independence forces from failure. Their provocation and lies are like an ant trying to shake a tree and will only hasten their self-destruction.
Full marks for the colourful language, but the threats are not working. Taiwan has issued a fiery response. It says the white paper is full of lies and wishful thinking, and the statement was followed by a Hollywood-style video featuring Taiwan's military. So no side wants to blink first. What about the US? They're fighting a different battle with China, the one involving semiconductors, the chips that run our laptops, smartphones and other smart devices. US President Joe Biden has signed the CHIPS Act. It's basically a new law. It is designed to boost chip manufacturing in the US. American chip makers will be given subsidies. They're valued at over $50 billion, 50. Biden wants American companies to make chips in the US. Right now, they import most of it from China. And the story involves Taiwan too. Taiwan is the global chip superpower. It dominates the global supply of chips. A Taiwanese company ships most of the world's chips. It's called the TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. TSMC is a bit like Saudi Arabia in the global oil business. It controls 53% of the world's chip-making factories. With this new CHIPS Act, the US is basically trying to attract companies like the TSMC.
Folks, we need to make these chips here in America to bring down everyday costs and create jobs.
So Biden wants more made in America chips. As Taiwan faces the threat of Chinese military action, the US is securing its bases. This story is not over. We'll turn to the Mediterranean. Tensions are rising there too, courtesy a usual suspect. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. On Tuesday, he flagged off a new crisis, and I mean quite literally. Erdogan flagged off a drilling ship to the Mediterranean. It's called the Abdul Hamid Han. It's the most advanced drilling vessel in Turkey's fleet. Almost 238 meters long, it can drill up to 12,000 meters. The vessel is expected to operate 55 kilometers off Antalya. So well inside Turkish waters. Then why is this drilling expedition an escalation? Because of two reasons. Number one, the wider Mediterranean is contested waters. Both Cyprus and Greece claim parts of it. Now, in the past, Turkish vessels have stirred trouble by drilling off the Cyprus coast. The European Union sanctioned Turkey for those missions. The fear is this could be a repeat. Erdogan's statements have only fueled those concerns. Listen to what he said.
Our exploration and drilling in the Mediterranean is within our own sovereign dominion. We don't need to seek permission or ratification from anyone. Neither the puppets nor the ones who hold their strings will be able to prevent us from getting our rights in the Mediterranean.
Reason number two, the timing of the drilling mission. It is the first since 2020. Back then, Erdogan sent a warship along with drilling vessels. Greece and Turkey came close to blows. That was 2020. The big issue is the islands in the Aegean Sea. Both countries claim them. Turkey says they have been militarized by Greece. Greece claims it is only for self-defense. What's worse, both countries are NATO members. So the US is involved, the European Union is involved. It's a pretty complicated conflict with a lot of stakeholders. But last year, things appear to improve. Both sides began bilateral talks to resolve this matter. Then in June this year, Erdogan walked away. And that too in typical Erdogan style, by insulting Greece.
Behave yourself. Haven't you learned any lessons from history? Where were you in history? Where are you now? Then you weep and whine. Don't attempt to dance with Turkey. You will get tired and find yourself stranded.
They say diplomacy is all about tact. Well, Erdogan certainly missed that memo. By flagging off this new drill mission, Turkey is once again raising tensions. The Greek government says they're monitoring the situation. One slight error, and there could be another standoff, a repeat of 2020. What is Erdogan gaining from this brinkmanship? What explains his sudden bravado? Well, we can think of two things. A, Turkey's energy needs. Erdogan's country is dependent on foreign energy. Almost 45% of the natural gas comes from Russia. And these exports are expensive. They're driving up Turkey's trade deficit. So Erdogan's plan is to replace imports with domestic production and hence the offshore drilling. The second reason is political. The global situation enables Erdogan to try out such risky operations. Why? Because the world needs him. World powers need him right now. Russia needs Turkey as leverage over the West, also to mediate in Ukraine. The West needs him to expand NATO, to grant memberships to Finland and Sweden. So Erdogan is basically milking the situation. For him, now is the time for political adventurism. And by the way, it's not limited to the Mediterranean. Erdogan is escalating things in the south as well. He's planning a military operation into Syria. The plan has three paths. 1, drive Kurdish groups away from the border. 2, create a 30-kilometer safe zone. And 3, resettle Syrian refugees in that safe zone. And Erdogan has done this before. He has launched 3 military operations into Syria. The question is he bluffing this time? Frankly, it's hard to say. On Sunday, Turkish drones attacked Kurdish forces near the border. At least 4 people were killed. Whether this escalates or not depends a lot on the US. Former President Donald Trump did support Erdogan's operations. He openly abandoned the Kurds. If Joe Biden does the same, the operation could go ahead. It depends on what Biden prioritizes, expanding NATO or saving the Kurds. As for Russia, Putin is hoping diplomacy prevails. He met Erdogan last week in Sochi, and during this meeting, Putin made a strange proposal. He asked Erdogan to speak to Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad. Why is this a strange proposal? Because Erdogan has not spoken to Assad since 2011. Now, if this call happens, it would be the first in 11 years. But as things stand, Erdogan is committed to this operation. He wants to drive out the Kurdish forces. It makes you wonder, what exactly is the game plan here? Erdogan is picking 2 fights at the same time, and that too with allies. In the Mediterranean, they're facing Europe. In the south, they face the US and Russia. What is the point of these dangerous games? To win elections, that is the point. Turkey will elect their new president in June 2023. Erdogan's economy is in a very poor state, so he's campaigning as a conflict leader, a president fighting all of Turkey's enemies. It may get him re-elected, but in the process, Erdogan may unleash conflicts that he cannot control. And speaking of conflicts hard to control, Donald Trump is fighting one, a conflict with America's justice system. He's embroiled in a litany of lawsuits. He faces charges of cronyism, instigating riots, stealing official documents. And this is the former president we are talking about. The last one, stealing official documents, has triggered a political firestorm in the US thanks to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. It recently raided Donald Trump's residence, the palatial MarALago estate in Florida. This was to search for certain official records which Trump apparently stole from the White House. Here's a report.
Welcome to MarALago, a 17-acre sprawling estate worth over $160 million, located in Palm Beach, Florida. This palatial property was dubbed as the Winter White House, courtesy its owner, Donald J. Trump. During his presidency, Trump spent a total of 142 days at this resort. He entertained world leaders here, approved military strikes on Syria, even coordinated America's response to a North Korean missile test. After his reluctant exit from the White House, Trump made MarALago his home and base. He's also said to have relocated some presidential records here, an allegation that's now a matter of investigation. These images are from Monday, right after an FBI raid, an extraordinary search operation that has sparked a political firestorm. FBI agents reportedly arrived unannounced at this resort. They broke into Trump's safe, searched his living quarters, and examined his personal documents. What exactly were they looking for? Official records which Trump apparently stole from the White House. Did they find any? The FBI has refused to comment. The White House says it wasn't even informed. It says the president learned about the raids from the news.
The president and the White House learned about this FBI search from public reports. We learned just like the American public did yesterday, and we did not have advance notice of this activity.
The Trump family doesn't agree. It says the raids were motivated, that they were driven by an agenda. An agenda to stop Trump from running for office again. A statement issued by his office reads, "Nothing like this has ever happened to a president of the United States before." After cooperating with relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not appropriate. It is prosecutorial misconduct, the weaponization of the justice system, and an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024. Back at MarALago, Trump supporters are reiterating these sentiments, armed with flags and slogans. They're calling the raid a witch hunt.
A truthful investigation. That's not what we have. We have a witch hunt.
Legal analysts disagree with the assertion. They say the FBI didn't conduct the raid as a game of gotcha.
I absolutely believe that they believe that the juice is worth the squeeze. They believe that there is something very important that they're investigating that would have major consequences if proven. And they're not doing this as a game of gotcha to find some technical violation of the Presidential Records Act or the Government Records Act.
Regardless of the blame game, an FBI raid on a former president is unusual, and it comes right before the midterm elections in the United States. Elections where Biden's prospects look hazy. His ratings are low, the voters are split. At a time like this, a federal body raids Biden's biggest opponent. It then refuses to comment on the seizures, as the president feigns absolute ignorance. Does the story add up? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, if you followed the news in the last 24 hours, you must have heard about Serena Williams. The tennis player has announced that she will soon be retiring. She wrote about her decision in an article. And this is what she's saying. "Believe me, I never wanted to have to choose between tennis and a family. I don't think it's fair. If I were a guy, I wouldn't be writing this because I'd be out there playing and winning while my wife was doing the physical labor of expanding our family." Well, this line sums up the rest of the article, also Serena's decision to retire. If you haven't figured out already, Serena Williams is basically saying that she's retiring because she's a woman. Her daughter Olympia wants a sibling. She wants to be a big sister, so Serena must retire in order to expand her family. Do all women retire when they have a family? Serena says it's not fair that she has to make this choice, and she's right. She says she wouldn't have had to choose had she been a man. Again, she's right. Career versus family is a fight unique to women. I'm sure men have their struggles, but this usually is not one of them. Women have to pick either work or family or find a tough balance between the two. It's never easy. Even if you're Serena Williams, it's not easy. But must you quit? Serena Williams says she is 41. As she turns 41, something's got to give. So she's giving up tennis, a sport she has grown to become the face of. She's won 73 singles titles, 23 doubles titles, 23 Grand Slam titles, 14 Grand Slam doubles, 2 Grand Slam mixed doubles titles, and 4 Olympic golds. She has spent 319 weeks as the world's #1 female tennis player. Serena Williams is a great player, perhaps among the greatest in the game. That said, she hasn't won a single Grand Slam since 2017. The last time she made news globally was in 2018. She was playing Naomi Osaka for the US Open title. She was pulled up for getting coaching signals. She lost a point for breaking a racket and then lost the game for calling the umpire a thief. Serena Williams broke the rules of tennis and then she made it a sexist issue. She said she was penalized because she was a woman. She said, and I'm quoting, "I've seen other men call other umpires several things. I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality and for all kinds of stuff. For me to say thief and for him to take a game, it made me feel like it was a sexist remark. He's never taken a game from a man because they said thief. For me, it blows my mind, but I'm going to continue to fight for women. Noble cause, but turning every issue into a gender issue is not how you fight for women. Same goes for turning retirement into a gender issue. Serena Williams says, and I'm quoting again, "I have never liked the word retirement. I wish it could be easy for me, but it's not. I'm torn. I don't want it to be over, but at the same time, I'm ready for what's next. One thing I'm not going to do is sugarcoat this." Well, good. So we'll not sugarcoat this either. Serena Williams, like I said, has not won a single Grand Slam since 2017. She's nowhere on the women's tennis chart. She's not a player at the peak of her career, so retiring was perhaps the natural thing to do. People saw it coming. What she could have done is own retirement better, more gracefully, instead of portraying it as a sacrifice that she has to make because she's a woman. She spoke about moving on, focusing on other ventures. At one point, she also mentioned Ashley Barty. She said the tennis player retired at the top of her game. She's right. But guess what? Barty sounded more honest about it. She said she did not have it in her to go back to court. Serena Williams says she's going to miss the girl that played tennis. Well, she does not have to. She's a global icon. Women and girls look up to her all over the world. It's okay to retire, but it's not okay to paint yourself a victim at the pinnacle. If she wants to continue playing, she should expand her family, go back to court, train and win another Grand Slam. It will not be easy, but none of what she's done has been easy. She should tell women worldwide that I did it and so can you. Now that would be fighting for women. Crying victim is quite the opposite, we say. Our next story is from South Korea. On Monday, torrential rain flooded the country's capital, Seoul. More than 10 people died, 7 went missing. That was the worst spell of rain in a century in this country. Seoul hasn't seen such a downpour in 115 years. The outcome was equally unprecedented. The rain knocked out power grids, flooded the metro system, even triggered landslides. The images are tragic. The voices even more so. Here's a report.
These images are from Seoul, the capital of South Korea. The man you see is the country's president, Yoon Suk-yeol. On Tuesday afternoon, he was seen touring the capital, personally taking stock of the flooded areas. The images are unusual, especially for a city like Seoul, which is known for its stellar drainage system. But it seems to have failed before torrential rain. On Monday, this city was deluged by a record 3.9 inches of rain. It knocked out power grids, flooded the metro system, damaged numerous homes, and submerged countless vehicles. To the residents of Seoul, it seemed like a scene out of Titanic.
I couldn't believe that I was trapped in a building with 40 other people in the middle of Gangnam district due to floods. It reminds me of Titanic. I was so scared.
This was the heaviest rainfall in over 115 years. It damaged over 570 homes, temporarily displaced over 1,400 people, claimed the lives of 10 people, with 7 people still missing. 3 of those who died were found trapped in a banja, a semi-underground home. It is a common structure in this city of 10 million people. The scenes from the site bear an uncomfortable similarity to a semi-basement flat depicted in the Oscar-winning South Korean film Parasite. It also serves as a reminder of the growing social disparity in Asia's 4th largest economy. But the deluge did not even spare the rich. The worst hit area was the Gangnam district, the richest and most glitzy part of the city, home to the largest Korean brands and companies. Right now, it is lying in disarray, covered in dirt. There are damaged BMWs on walkways. Water is being pumped out from luxury stores as underpasses remain submerged in water. The residents of this district say they have never seen anything like it before.
I live nearby and this is my first time seeing these damaged vehicles on the street. So I'm a bit shocked and I hope that the damage would be recovered well.
Officials say it would take around 10 days to fix the damages. They have dispatched over 500 soldiers for recovery. What do they have to say about the cause of the deluge? The president is holding climate change accountable. He says the country's disaster management department will have to adapt to such abnormal weather conditions.
The intensive heavy rain we see now that broke the record for hourly precipitation in Korea's meteorological history is believed to be due to abnormal weather conditions caused by climate change. The government should review the current disaster management system from scratch, taking into account these abnormal weather conditions caused by climate change.
This warning is not without reason. The monsoon season is here to stay. More rain is expected on Thursday. Forecasters say the impact could be even more severe. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
It's been a while since we spoke about the latest trend at workplaces, and what better day than a Wednesday. Some of you may be struggling to cope with midweek madness. The countdown to the weekend has surely begun. Some of you may be fed up, even thinking of quitting in rage or quiet quitting in rage. Now what's that? What is quiet quitting? It is the latest workplace trend. It does not involve silently resigning or slipping your resignation letter under your boss's door. Quiet quitting is about quitting the idea of going above and beyond your KRA, key responsibility area at work. This trend is basically about doing only what you're expected to do. If your job is to lead a project, that's all that you do. You don't propose new projects, you don't help others with their projects, you don't mentor colleagues or help with team building exercises. All you do is lead your project. They say quiet quitting is about quitting the hustle culture. It advocates signing in at 10, signing out at 5, doing only what you're hired for, and that's it. Do you get the idea? For the longest time, this is what you were told not to do at your workplace. But today, Gen Z is embracing the idea of doing the bare minimum. They have dumped the idea of going the extra mile or working extra hours, taking work calls on weekends or after work hours. Gen Z is quiet quitting. There's sort of a workers' revolution on TikTok. It is being endorsed as a revolt against overworking. The trend apparently began in China. Beijing has now banned its mention. Quiet quitting. But workers across sectors are talking about it. So how healthy is quiet quitting? In theory, it may sound like the ultimate mantra for a perfect work-life balance. You know, sign in on time, sign out on time, enough time for family, for sleep. And this may sound like the most sustainable way to work. In practice, though, quiet quitting may be just the opposite. This trend stands to take a toll on your life. Now, I assume that most of you work because you have bills to pay. Sure, a lot of you love what you do. But you wouldn't work pro bono or for free. Now, what happens to these bills and to your life if you lose your job? Quiet quitting comes with that risk. And hear me out before you dismiss the idea. You see, there's a very thin line between setting healthy boundaries and being disengaged. It is healthy to not bite more work than you can chew. But it is unhealthy to duck at the sight of work. It is healthy to spend time with family, unhealthy to sign out at 5 even if there's pending work. It is healthy to switch off on weekends, unhealthy to be non-flexible about it. Like I said, it's a thin line. Also, managers can tell when someone has crossed that line. It's easy. You can figure out that someone is not putting the same effort as they used to, or when the person's productivity falls. And it stays that way for a long time. Do you know what happens next? Appraisal season. It works on Newton's third law of motion, action-reaction. You get what you give. And work is very transactional that way. If you don't give your best, your employer won't give you the best of opportunities. It leads to stagnation. Your bonus letters will reflect this stagnation. You see, no company wants lackluster workers. You may have noticed how such employees are often sidelined, kept out of strategy meetings, and eventually told to leave. Also, every trend has its good, bad, and ugly, and this is the ugly side of quiet quitting. Experts believe this trend is a result of global burnout, and the theory makes sense. 52% of workers the world over are burnt out. So they're trying to find a way to get back a sense of balance. But is quiet quitting the best way to do it? If you're burnt out, should you too embrace quiet quitting? Why not talk to your manager instead? Figure out a way to cope with the burnout, take a break, come back and deliver your best. But don't let your reputation suffer by becoming the face of a demotivated worker. If you're not satisfied with your work, discuss with your manager. If nothing changes even after the conversation, then quit. Take up another job and give your 100%. But don't become that worker who just does the bare minimum. If you think you need to reevaluate your career, then do that. Upskill yourself. And whatever new it is that you choose to do, be enthusiastic about it. Don't stay in a job half-heartedly. Don't quiet quit. It neither helps your growth nor your reputation as an employee. And that said, you know your situation best. All I'm going to say is, think twice before you jump on a trend. Wrapping the show, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks for watching.